Now, Saudi-led coalition has been placed on a United Nations blacklist for killing and injuring Yemeni children and targeting schools and medical centers. A report from UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres was submitted over to the Security Council on Thursday. Now, according to a report, the coalition killed 683 children and attacked 38 schools and hospitals in 2016 alone. Coalition had been briefly added to the list of shame back in 2016 and then removed by then UN Chief Ban Ki-moon after Riyadh threatened to cut its funding to the world body. And then on Thursday, a Yemeni child was killed after Saudi jets targeted a car in the Baghim district of Sada province. Now, Saudi Arabia launched a war on its neighbor in March of 2015, and since then, over 13,000 people, Muslim civilians, have lost their lives. And joining us out of Ontario, Canada for more on the story is Mr. Edward Corrigan, international human rights lawyer. Hello, Mr. Corrigan. Thanks for joining us back on the program. Sir, now, your thoughts why it took so long to get Riyadh blacklisted for what it's doing in Yemen?
Well, they are being sort of being morally listed on the blacklist, but the report does not recommend any sanctions from the Security Council, or so it's a blacklisting sort of in name only, and sort of it's a shame list, really. So they're not going to be officially, like, there's no embargo or sanctions against Saudi Arabia and its allies. But it still is a big step forward that the Secretary General is signing a report listing, Saudi Arabia's war crimes and the allies, where they've attacking the funeral, attacking schools, attacking the food supply. The reports that I saw don't talk about the food embargo and the embargo preventing medicine and other vital supplies going in, which is a big part of it. It's a collective punishment of the Yemen population that does not support the former sort of dictator Hadi, who was supported by the Saudis and resigned his position. So the Hutus took over, but they're also supported by others, including the supporters of former President Saleh, who has a great base of support in Yemen and has even military units from the Yemen army that are actively supporting him and resisting what most people, I think, correctly call the Saudi Arabia aggression. Hadi has set up a separate government in Aden, but the Hutus control Sana'a. They control, the bulk of the country. There's little pockets where you have Al-Qaeda and other Islamic extremists, but these seem to be actually probably, quietly supported by the Saudis, and they don't tend to bomb them. The Americans once in a while bomb people, and they claim it's the Al-Qaeda, but it's really hard to tell who they're bombing. And of course, the Americans have bombed the rebels, the Hutu Alliance, the Ansar movement, and other people, Yemeni army that is resisting the Saudi aggression. So there was a lot of problems. It's a big step. The Saudis managed to sort of blackmail the UN previously to say that if you condemn us or list this report, we're going to, cut our funding, which the UN Secretary General, he did withdraw the report to some extent, but he did complain about the blackmail that Saudi Arabia and its allies were doing to the United Nations. This was improper. So it looks like that the author of the report, specialists on, sort of food and children and other things, is, and the report now has got the signature of the Secretary General and going to the Security Council. So this will, if nothing else, shame the Saudis and their allies for their tactics
so that's
in front of the world opinion and, of course, in North American opinion. Now, and it's also...
I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but if you're saying that blacklisting him really has no teeth, then how do you give it teeth? What do you do? What's the next step to try to stop what the Saudis are doing to children in Yemen?
Well, for starters, you could remove Saudi Arabia's chair of the Human Rights Committee. The Security Council can impose sanctions against Saudi Arabia and its allies. An arms embargo would be a good place. Many people in Britain, the Labour Party leader, Jeremy Corbyn, has called for an embargo on arms sales, British arms sales to Saudi Arabia and its allies, because they're using these weapons and to kill children and civilians, and rampant disregard for the rules of war, and they're even targeting the food production capacity of.
Looks like we lost Mr. Edward Corrigan there. If you could hear us, Mr. Edward Corrigan, thanks for your contribution to the program. It was Mr. Edward Corrigan out of Ontario, Canada, international human rights lawyer.